Call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield on Monday, July 13th, 2026 to order at 7:00 p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolstook land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolstook, along which live Woolstookwe, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders past and present and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. But before we get started tonight, I wanted to share something that I've been thinking about since I got back a couple of weeks ago. I had the opportunity recently through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to represent Canada at the United Cities and Local Governance World Congress in Morocco, alongside municipal leaders from every corner of the world. We came from different countries, different political systems, and communities of every size. But it was really amazing. We kept coming back to the same conversations. Same thing. Doesn't matter whether it's Bay-Westfield or Johannesburg, South Africa. Housing, infrastructure, government funding, economic growth, and basically building communities where people want to stay, raise a family, and invest in. So it was a really good reminder that local government is where these issues become real. The decisions that we make here don't always make headlines, but they shape daily life for the people who live here, and that is an important reminder. And so our council is still brand new. We're getting to know each other, learning how we work together, and finding a rhythm together. And we won't all see every issue the same way, and we shouldn't. Healthy debate makes for better decisions. So I think what really matters is that we listen, respect one another, and never lose sight of who we're here to serve. Bay-Westfield has a lot of momentum right now. You can see it up on Colonel Nace with the cranes and the buildings and the new families moving in. People are choosing to live here. Businesses are investing here. Families are putting down roots here, and that is something worth being proud of. But it's also something that we have a responsibility to build on. So I'm really looking forward to the work ahead. I'm grateful to everyone who helps move this community forward, whether that's council, whether it's our amazing staff, our incredible volunteers, and our residents who care enough to get involved. And there's lots and lots of those. We're very lucky. So with that, let's get to tonight's business. So item 4, record of attendance. We have a full roster of attendance tonight. Thank you, everybody. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda for the meeting of July 13th, 2026, with item 13E being pulled out of the consent agenda for discussion and as item 11F. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Burpee, thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Bailmans. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. 6A, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence has a conflict with item 11D, ND marathon traffic update. Are there any other conflicts? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. Item 7A is always a fun, good news story. It's our post-secondary bursary draw, and every year we draw 2 names for students that are going to be moving ahead to post-secondary education. And so I guess it's time to do that. So, where do you want to put the box and all? It's always a great thing. Okay, so our first name is that not someone? Jameson Beckwith, and he's going to Bachelor of Recreation and Sports Studies program in the Faculty of Kinesiology. So congratulations, Jameson. There's one. And our second one is, hold it extremely well. Let's see. Eric Spencer, kinesiology as well. So congratulations, Eric. That's awesome. So congratulations to both Jameson and Eric. Yeah, that's awesome. It's always fun when you actually know the kids, so that's great. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to item 7B, the wildfire resiliency plan. So we have the TSI here to present. So there they are online. Welcome. Can you hear us okay?
Thank you.
Oh, that's
yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
okay. Yes, I can hear you. So thank you for joining us. I'll just get you to introduce yourself to the group, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thanks for having me on your council meeting. My name is Carol McCurdy. I've been working with Transitional Solutions since last summer, but my background is in both wildland firefighting and structural firefighting. I've been doing that for 35 years. And just recently left the province of Nova Scotia as a wildland firefighter. So it's near and dear to my heart, this project and these community resiliency plans. And I'm glad to see that your community took the step forward to get funding to get at least the plan itself going, and hopefully into phase 2 if you hadn't applied. The presentation kind of goes into a little bit of what we found in the results of the resiliency plan itself. This does not mean that the whole town is at extreme risk every day. It means that under wrong weather conditions, dry fuels, wind, fire, danger, there's certain areas that could become very difficult to protect or evacuate without planning ahead. The good news is that many of the risks identified are things that we can reduce. We cannot control weather, of course, or drought or wind. But we can reduce fuels near homes and improve planning, strengthen water supply options, support fire smart education, not only with our residents, but with our first responders, and improve operational readiness, making sure our firefighters have the training and the equipment to actually do their role effectively. Wildfire resiliency is not about removing gardens or cutting down everything, and that's what it often comes across as, but it's about choosing the right plants and putting them in the right places, and making sure that our home, our landscape is well prepared for any kind of emergency that can come down the pipe when it comes to wildfire. Wildfire risk here does not look like the Western Canadian image of vast forests or remote towns that you see on the news. Our risk is more local and community-based, and this is a maritime-specific thing. It's not really just a New Brunswick thing. When you look at the maritime provinces, we have a higher land population to land base. So the amount of homes here make it more risky for a wildfire to actually impact a lot of the structures that are here. And most likely, we're going to have a structure in most of our wildfires. Our risk is more local. Homes are close to forest edges, slopes behind neighborhoods, access constraints, and vegetation that's close to structures, of course. In Grand Bay-Westfield, what drives risk here is the localized winds. You guys have steep topography down to the valley and the river edge. Limited access in some of the more recreational areas and those kind of steeper topography areas. When speaking with the fire service, your spring grass fire is kind of your peak ignition period. But of course, when we look out the window today, in the past couple of days, we realize that the past couple of years have become more dry, with drought conditions, longer seasons, and shorter winters. Critical infrastructure is well maintained, so we classed it as low risk in your area, and it is one of the bigger things we look at now when you look at the Tantalum fire in Halifax. They had 2 communication towers burn over that lost both their radio service, their TMR radio, and dispatching for Halifax, but also just communications to get those emergency alerts out to residents. So you don't think of communication towers and power lines as critical, but they are when it comes to that kind of stuff. And of course, vegetation that's close to structures, seniors complexes and residential structures that are very close to those conifer and needle-like trees that are in the forest. And of course, in the Maritimes, we have the highest percentage of human-caused fires, out of all the provinces across Canada. So we are basically looking at any kind of burning, recreational use, hunting, fishing, ATVing, and things like that. Where your risk is the highest is Highway 7 West. When we get up into the topography, into the more remote areas behind the community, it's steep in terrain, recreational use is high, and you have that potential for fire embers. Like if a fire were to start in that area, for fire embers to travel into downtown, where you think risk would be lower with the amount of homes. But those fire embers will land in those susceptible fuels like clogged gutters, bark mulch, and any kind of vegetation that is around your home. Mature mix stands with a high percentage of conifer, steep terrain, and recreational use of past fires on the Campbell Road East area. And kind of looking kind of northwest into Colonel Nace Boulevard to Ingleside Heights, we saw a lot of steep terrain and conifers. And actually, even as you saw in the last slide, the picture of the campfire, past fire occurrences in remote areas. You know, they're not in properly placed fire pits and things like that. So those are little things that can cause wildfire, but also power line with vegetation encroachment on like domestic use power lines. What increases our wildfire risk isn't just one thing, it's a combination of conditions. And when we look at the kind of perfect storm, what we're really looking at here is what makes a fire more likely to start, to spread, and to impact people and structures. So fuels are the foundation of this, obviously. It's not just what type, it's how they are arranged. You know, if there was a hurricane, or if it's continuous fuels, to how close they are to structures, to how healthy they are. You know, do we have spruce bugworm or insect damage from our forest insects? It all changes how fire will behave, and the time of year will change how fire will behave in the landscape. Whereas spring will have fast-moving fires, and into the fall we'll have, or like this time of month, August onward, we'll have deep burning fires that are harder to put out. Structures don't exist in isolation, so they are part of the fuel system. They kind of act like another tree when it comes to a wildfire. Risk increases based on what type of building materials are there, the placement on the landscape, especially on slope, what's around the home, such as decks, bark mulch, vegetation, fuel wood. But how we build and maintain our homes directly affects ignition potential. And the one thing residents really overlook is that they'll prepare for hurricanes, floods, snowstorms, but they often think that wildfire is a fire response and that the fire department will come in, or the municipality. But what they don't realize is they also have to have their part done, you know, preparing for wildfire around their own landscape. But looking at municipal levels, dead ends, narrow roads, poor signage, such as non-weight restricted bridges. We don't know if you're able to get a fire truck even across it. To delay fire response, it complicates evacuations, increases entrapment risk, and if we can't get in or out effectively, then we increase, the risk increases significantly, and structures end up being lost because they can't be protected. Water matters, but it's about quantity, accessibility, reliability. And in rural or intermixed areas, limited water supply can delay suppression, limit structure protection. Water supports response, but only if it's accessible. Fire moves differently depending on terrain. You know, fire travels faster uphill, more complex topography, and it can amplify fire behavior behind what fuels alone would suggest. These are the systems communities depend on, those critical infrastructure pieces I was talking about. And when they go missing, a lot of our response capabilities go down the drain with it. Where homes are located and the fuels, it matters. You know, if the home is tucked into the forest, spaced out by more fuels, or maybe it's cookie cutter in one house right up against each other. Either way, those both create their own significant challenges when it comes to fire suppression. When there's more people in the landscape, we're gonna have more human-caused fires, right? Wind is one of our biggest drivers. You know, we look at the past couple of days, we've had high winds, lower humidities. This is also going to drive our fire behavior. It's not just about the hazard, it's about our ability to respond. Delays in detection, dispatch, coordination, or lack of planning and communication can allow fires to grow quickly. When it comes to how fires will spread to the homes, the number one cause is fire ember transport. It's not so much the convective radiant heat or direct flame, which are equally both as important, but the number one cause is those tiny little fire embers landing in your susceptible gutters, fuels, bark mulch, and things like that, and catching the home on fire. We don't prevent wildfires, we prevent damage. and most homes are lost due to vulnerabilities, not fire intensity. When it comes to the home ignition zone, we're looking at the 0 to 1.5 meter is the most critical. And this is where we want residents to focus, is cleaning up around the garden, around the deck, to things that may be laying around. When it comes out from that, it's just pruning and thinning to actually just maintaining your yard. And when you get into community level preparedness, it's more effective. So the more homes that prepare for a wildfire, the better it is, or the more chances of it surviving. Things like breaking leaks, fixing cracks and crevices in siding windows, doors, reducing fuels that kind of create that connectivity from the surface fuel to the treetop. And then just doing all this actually improves the forest health of the trees that are in your property anyway. It makes them more wind firm, less susceptible to insect and other disease because they are being taken care of and not neglected. When it comes to community priorities, the biggest one for you folks, and I did receive a question prior to the session, is that for me, and being a prevention officer with the province of Nova Scotia, is education first. And we're talking about voluntary approach for existing residential properties. It's not recommending the immediate introduction of home cleanliness bylaw, like a bylaw. It's just getting folks to realize that the small little simple things can protect their home when it comes to a wildfire. It's improving your evacuation planning and your response, your major emergency response plan, making sure that it identifies evacuation routes, neighborhoods with limited egress, and continue wildfire-specific emergency exercises, practicing and working with the communities. The most effective thing I have found in community risk assessments and plans is getting the residents more involved. They wish they had done it earlier. They learn who their neighbors are, they get to work together for a common cause, and it brings people together, and they take more ownership of a program because of it. Strengthen wildfire operational readiness, getting your firefighters trained to a certain level and having the appropriate equipment, because what if natural resources can't be there? What if New Brunswick Natural Resources has 30 fires going and they can't make it to Grand Bay-Westfield for a fire? Having that pre-incident planning and being pre-prepared before something even happens. Enhancing your water supply so that the firefighters can access it, not only for wildfire, but for structural fire and any other events that could happen. Integrating wildfire resilience into future development considerations. When you build a subdivision or a community, how do you get in and out of there? How does the fire department respond? What's their water access? Are there vulnerable persons? What do we need to do in that community to make it more resilient to all hazards? Expand public education and prevention efforts, getting folks more involved. And the one thing that we have been lacking in many of the provinces is education with our children. They are the folks who are going to grow up and take over this stuff and, make our province more resilient. And then strengthen your interagency coordination by doing things like you are today, working together with different agencies to prepare. So one of the most important messages for residents is that small actions matter. Cleaning gutters, moving firewood, moving combustibles, even that thatched door mat that you have on your front step can catch fire. Making your landscape less susceptible to vulnerabilities, and then making sure that you update your municipal emergency plan so it reflects the current staff, council structure, notification systems, and wildfire risk. Even your evacuation triggers and realities of a wildfire affecting your developed areas. And a well-designed urban interface wildfire water supply is not just about putting out one structure, it's about supporting sustained operations and protecting multiple values and knowing in advance where reliable water can be accessed. One of the early priorities should be working with vulnerable facilities and critical infrastructure owners to reduce hazards, such as your New Brunswick Power, your communication towers, to even your right-of-ways, your roadways. Improving your evacuation readiness and confirm structure protection needs before an emergency even happens. Why most plans fail is because it's a snapshot in time and there's no forward thinking. the folks who did the assessment actually didn't even talk to the community or the elected officials, the fire service. And those are key, is talking to all the folks involved in the community. They're using copy-paste templates that are not community specific. They focus on fuels and not people. Ignore access and evacuation realities, limited inclusion of local knowledge, and not including emergency planning and response. Lack of public education and communication and building a self-reliance is critical. So council is not being asked to do everything at once. The ask is to use this plan as a roadmap, endorse it, identify the first priorities, assign leads, pursue funding, and track progress over time. And if I can give you any advice, don't put it on a shelf and forget about it. Make sure you share it with your residents and the folks that come in behind you. Implementation and cost approach, it's data-driven decision-making. It helps you fight for your grants to help you do some of the initiatives that may be involved in your phase 2. Defensible planning decisions, reduce liability, and improve public safety. The plan turns wildfire from an emergency problem into a planning advantage, and that's what we want. Council enables implementation through policies and bylaws, budget direction, strategic prioritization, and finally, risk is manageable. Action is targeted and achievable, and early action equals lower long-term cost and risk. And that's all I had. Is there any, did you guys get a copy of the question answer I provided this afternoon? Or if you hadn't, I can read it.
Well, what I'll do is I'll open the floor. Thank you for that presentation to council and see if they have any specific questions first. And if we have a quiet group tonight, then maybe we can do the question and answer set that you have there. Any specific questions from council on the presentation? Councilor Wheel, sorry.
What would be the top actions that we would be taking on this? It's a lot. I think there are over 40 actionable items there. This is my second meeting, so what are the top priorities? Or is that more of an internal question?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a lot, and that's the hard part. I guess the easiest thing to turn to is the voluntary approach, for existing residential properties. So, helping residents understand that they have a certain ownership to what they can control on their own physical property. So, reducing, helping residents understand the home ignition zone and the risks that are involved, because a lot of the folks that I talked to that lost homes in the past couple of years wish they had known better the risk and how to prepare, if they had to evacuate. Promoting wildfire resilient landscaping with your local garden centers and greenhouses, and when buying plants, that they're buying plants that are proper for your area and where they put them. And then simple cleanup, what they do around the yard. When it comes to that stuff, it's more intended to support residents, not penalize them, so.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
And I think that, Troy, you had something to add?
Yes, I can add a little bit to that as well. So this resiliency plan was basically phase 1, the province, and was done through funding from the province. So they have opened up phase 2, which we're doing submission over multiple years. So the order that we've put in for our application is in 2026. We're hoping for funding for the governance portion, which is updating bylaws, municipal emergency response plan, the wildland interface evacuation plan, SOPs and some internal things that way. The purchase of wildland interface PPE or personal protective equipment for our firefighters. And then, as Kara was mentioning, in this first year, we'd also like to start the fire smart implementation and public education, which is certainly key. In 27, the request would be for the readiness and training, response plans, including GIS mapping, evacuation considerations, and operational staging locations, so it's getting a little bit more technical in how we would actually respond. And then in 2028 would be the targeted mitigation and prevention, so that might get into, we're specifically going to look at this site and make changes to the topography or protect certain roads, and change egress routes for some areas. So that's additional.
Thank you, Troy. That answer your question, Councillor?
Does, I have a few,
Okay.
that's okay?
Yeah, I'll just make sure that anybody else have any questions right now before we go back to Councillor Wheel? Okay, Councillor?
We are on a big slope. The whole town is on a big granite hill, it seems. And we also have a climate adaptation hierarchy and plan. And it feels that some of this may conflict if we're starting to cut down certain trees and we're trying to maintain the soil at the same time. If we do start to get into regulation, how do we determine which plan takes priority?
So I can jump in on that one. Or sorry, if you had something to add to it, for sure.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
You go
So
ahead.
essentially, the town, we do, you're right, we have a number of plans that address a number of areas. And there is some cross work on each of the plans. Anything within the fire smart wouldn't be looking at cutting down a number of trees that would actually impact from heavy rainfalls and our stormwater management. This is more referring to on an actual property where there's a structure, let's make sure that everything is at least a safe distance away. It's not necessarily about saying, hey, here's a big vacant lot with 1,000 trees on it, let's go cut all the trees down, which would contribute to overland flooding. So it's not quite that, but where those conflicts do exist, in any case of two plans, there's an evaluation done to basically determine, okay, which one in this particular case needs to take precedent over the other.
And if we do start to go towards bylaw and regulation, do we get to the point where the city would take responsibility to make modifications, similar to how we cut down some hedges near a stop sign?
We would only do that on our own property. We certainly wouldn't, the only thing we can do with private property is, one, we could put plans and bylaws in place that regulate how future subdivisions or properties are developed. But any existing, we wouldn't be in a position where we're gonna go to a property owner and say, okay, we're gonna make a bylaw that says you have to cut down 12 of your trees. That wouldn't take place. What we would do is have bylaws that encourage certain behaviors and an education program that encourages certain behaviors and lets those people know that, you know, if a fire were to occur, you know, and the current makeup of your property, you are at much greater risk.
And are there other communities that are similar to ours that have implemented these plans and bylaws that maybe we could reference on how well it's been adopted and maybe some of the pushback we received so we can learn from that?
Yeah, so we've, last season, Transitional Solutions completed 35 communities in New Brunswick, resiliency plans. Several of them have applied for phase 2 funding to kind of move forward with one of those priority areas identified in the plans. When it comes to bylaw changes, as we all know, it's hard to change a bylaw or an act or a policy right away. But when you're doing any kind of future policy planning, you know, considerations in community development to even having a vegetation management program, for example, one of the key things that residents had complained about after doing all this work, you know, clean up yards and whatever it is, where do we put all the brush? So some municipalities have stepped up with a small program where they either have drop-off locations or, you know, a small pot of money can be used towards putting a dumpster on site, chipping or hauling away, things like that. So something like that is helpful. If you're looking for any kind of bylaws, the only ones I have found across Canada is in Squamish, BC. And they do have some fire regulations and policies that they have implemented in their town there.
Thank you.
That's everything for me.
Councillor Bennett?
Yeah, the bylaw, we have a bylaw in place, keep your mess around your house regardless, helps fire. And I had an idea maybe to help the fire department. We have towers in our town, like Rogers Tower. Could they put a camera in the tower to see if we see a fire in the future, but I guess time is the essence when you have a fire anywhere in our province, right? So the towers, we have towers there, they're sitting there with electricity already. Can we have cameras on them to overlook property and long distance and time is of the essence when the fire starts and we 50 miles on that way, they still get here eventually, right? They're not under control. Right?
Yes, and there are various monitoring options,
Yeah.
so currently the province or DNR does do monitoring to a degree, especially during like last summer, during the extremely dry season. They were doing aerial monitoring with their aircraft, just simply doing that, looking for any fire that may not have been reported. And there are specialized cameras, so that is something, it would most likely be a DNR project, but we would certainly work with them to support it.
We have towers up on top of Valley, sitting there. It could be a bonus for us to have a camera, 360 camera goes around and sees the fire, like 6 times the essence, right?
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah. He's correct, like detection is one of the key things, and a lot of the communities have started looking into camera options. I did actually, when I worked for Halifax Fire, I was actually the one who implemented the program there for the camera detection system. And it was very much worth the money that we spent on it. I think in the end, the first season, we had 800 illegal occurrences reported by the cameras that we would not have known about. So it's definitely an option. The other thing is we're not looking to get residents to cut and remove all the trees, because we all know how important forests are after the fact to keeping grass in place and shrubs. I know in Tantallon and all the different fires I've been on, they're super important, you know, for wind damage, shade, heat, those kinds of things. So we want people to just make their forest healthier around their property and consider that. But if they don't have the ability to do all this stuff, there are the options of going to wildland fire sprinklers. They're very cheap. You can get them on Amazon. 2 per structure would cover your home probably for $300. So there's other options for folks who can't do all the work too.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions for Kara? Councillor Murphy.
I just have a comment, and thank you, Kara, for your presentation. There's a lot of good information on there, and I just, my comment really is just that regarding education. Where in my ward we're surrounded by trees, and I think it would be really helpful to focus a strong effort on educating homeowners with what they can do, even regarding the color of mulch that they use and those kind of things. I think would be something that municipalities, councils could really encourage. So and also the point that you made about previous homeowners, that if they wish that they had done a few things differently, I'd like to know what those few things differently are, so that, you know, I could protect my own property and, you know, family and friends too. So like the education part of it, I think is key. So thank you.
It is, yeah. A lot of the residents, I had one lady in one community who, when I initially did her home assessment, she's like, she didn't understand that bark mulch and shrubs and like conifers were a high risk, but she's now like the community advocate, community champion. She's even doing YouTube videos, it's Fire Safe Fridays with Mason's Point. But what she's doing is pushing it to all the residents, to the community members outside of there. And in fact, there's actually a wildfire burning, not even like 20 kilometers from their community right now. So I'm sure they're like thinking in the back of their head, you know, I'm glad we did all this work and we got together with our neighbors to learn more about how to reduce risk. And then if there is somebody that can't do the work, then they're helping them out, you know, if they're senior or a vulnerable person.
Thank you. Yes,
I
Councillor
think
Miller.
you're telling us to plant more hardwood trees. around your house that are fir trees or spruce trees or whatever, because they'll bite faster than a hardwood tree. That's what I'm guessing,
At
right?
least within the 10 meters.
Selected the one you plant around your house. Instead of replacing it with a
Yeah.
fir tree, replace it with a hardwood tree.
You got her. Yeah.
Thank you. If we don't have any other questions, I have a couple of questions for you. So the priorities that you presented earlier this evening, I think there were 7 or 8, I can't remember right off the top of my head. What was the weighting used to rank them? Was that based on risk reduction, cost benefit, operational need? How did number 1 get to be number 1 and number 7 get to be number 7 is basically what I'm asking.
It's a hard question to answer because, I mean, to different groups, it's all a different priority, right? So when we looked at the community risk assessment, the priorities come from the Fire Smart 7 disciplines that they have. And in that, we find that the education component is number 1 with all the communities. Throughout the other items that are there, like strengthening interagency coordination was at number 7. They really weren't ranked from high to low. It's just that that's the way it kind of landed when we put it in there. But oftentimes agencies will go directly to equipment and buying a crap ton of equipment, and then they have no idea how to use it or they're not trained to use it. And it's that education piece that should come first. You know, the educating residents to reduce risk and be better prepared in any emergency, regardless if it's wildfire, but also to the fire services that are getting out there and doing structural protection. So to me, like communications and education are top number 2. In my experience, I was investigator for a couple of the fires that happened here in Nova Scotia. And when I talked to the residents after the calls, the fires, and when we had 151 homes lost in Tantallon. The number 1 complaint from residents was that they wish there had been more communications and more public education. So we tend to go to that for the number 1, priority for getting people to, I guess, kind of be more self-sufficient.
Thank you for that. I have a very good friend that lost her home in the Tantallon fire, so I remember that in real time. I have another question too, and it kind of relates to what Councillor Wheel was saying. And so I had some conversations with Mayor England from Jasper about a month and a half ago, and I was on a panel with him about the effects of wildfire preparedness. And I mean, I think that because they've just gone through such a traumatic experience in Jasper, some of the things that they're doing are certainly, I would consider very, extreme from our perspective. So with respect to development standards and allowed building materials and things of that nature. So you're only allowed to use certain types of composite to build decks. You're restricted to what kind of roof tiling that you can use. You can't use cedar shakes, things of that nature. Are you seeing that kind of move towards more restrictive development standards across the country, or is that only in communities that have experienced a situation like this?
No, I mean, certainly there is the move towards that now, especially with insurance companies not being able to afford another like multi-million wildfire. Insurance companies are starting to come on board now with communities and how they're developed, and either supporting people with insurance or not supporting people with insurance. There was talk the last building code update that they were going to incorporate some of building code in regard to wildfire resiliency in the next round, but we all know how often building code gets updated, which is 5 to 10 years. So it could be a long time before we do see that. The difference between Jasper and the Maritimes is we don't have a blanket of conifer like they do out west. We're fortunate that way in the Maritimes that we have very diverse stands, and it's critical for us because of the high population we have here. And certainly in the fires that I have seen, it hasn't been the deck that has caused the home to be looked in fire. It's been more the landscape plants and the bark mulch and how close the home is to the forest.
Thank you for that.
Did I lose you?
Yeah, no, that's good. Councillor Bellman.
For spraying the hardwoods in the forest around like in Crown Land, how does that work? Like spraying for hardwoods, killing the hardwoods and leaving the softwood, would that make it more risk for fire also, or? Because I know hardwoods slow down fire, right? The growth, like for hardwood
Yeah.
lands, so you're spraying for hardwoods and killing the hardwood trees for the spruce trees to grow better, does that affect our town or the city?
It's a good question. I don't really know if I have the answer in regards to spraying, but what I do know is when it comes to hurricane damage or wind-blown trees is that, yes, definitely they become a hazard as they die. But after about 5 years, they start to become more rotten and not at fire risk as they would have been in the earlier stages. So in the initial stages, yeah, you may have some issues with that, but that would be probably a more question for your local natural resources.
Thank you, Kara. Well, if there are no other questions, and I don't see any, thank you very much for the report. We appreciate the work and the time spent with us here tonight answering our questions. And so with that, I will look for a motion, and the motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bellman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Toole. Thank you. Any further questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thanks again, Kara.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, meeting of June 22nd, 2026. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Council June 22nd, 2026. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Burpee, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor London, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried, thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. 9A, Team NB sponsorship inquiry, and I'll pass that over to CEO Gautreaux.
Thank you. So this was a carryover from our previous meeting, in which there was an item in the consent agenda, council requested to come out. In essence, it comes down to a fundamental question of what type of sponsorship council wants to provide to residents, whether it be as organizations, groups, teams, or individual. At the end, the recommendation of administration is that going down the road of supporting individual athletes opens up a pretty large pool, and in the methods that we support, I guess look at it from another perspective is we do support. There are a number of ways that we support our athletes. Municipals tend to focus on providing the facilities. So if we use hockey as an example, we support the hockey environment by providing a facility. So if a player is playing hockey or baseball at one of our baseball fields and they become really amazing in that sport and move up and go into a provincial or national or even an international level, we helped foster that by creating these facilities and funding these facilities. Typically, municipalities do not engage in funding individual athletes because at the end of the day, our municipality is made up of an endless number of athletes that reach significant levels. And the other thing to consider is it really isn't just athletes. We have a number of our community members who are excelling on provincial and national and international levels in the arts and in all kinds of functions in areas. So with that, that's kind of our perspective from administration for council's consideration.
Thank you, Troy. I'm going to read out the motion, get it on the table and open for discussion. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the request. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Wheel?
Certainly. Administration has correctly identified that supporting individual athletes can be challenging. And I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarification. I felt that there was potentially an opportunity for Bay-Westfield to become more meaningfully involved with the summer games. Very far in the future, it may seem like it's not really something we need to be addressing right now, but I felt this was a great opportunity for us to have the conversation. Because our town does financially support the facilities, but we probably won't be directly working with the summer games. We don't have a swimming pool here. We aren't going to be hosting a lot. We don't have a hotel for people to stay in. And we don't have restaurants that may be bringing people through. So perhaps there's a way that the town can celebrate and be more involved with the summer games and find a way to recognize through athlete recognition, volunteer engagement, community celebrations. So it may not be specific to supporting, especially financially supporting athletes and coaches, but I would love to see if there's a way to explore celebrating the summer games from a community perspective.
Right, and I think I can speak to this because I sit on the FRSC and we have a lot of these conversations, so that work is ongoing. And there is absolutely an intention to bring those types of celebrations and events and opportunities to engage right here in Grand Bay-Westfield. We might not have an actual Canada Games event here, but we'll have engagement opportunities with athletes. There's a potential for workshops, all of those kinds of things. So that absolutely will be in the plan. It just, we might not have lacrosse or swimming or something like that here, but the Canada Games will have a presence here in the town. What that ends up looking like, it's a little too early to say, but all of those ideas will certainly be something that will be moving forward for sure. And Troy, did you have anything to add to that from your perspective?
Actually, no, basically the exact same. I do know from some past high profile events that have taken place in the St. John region, that exact premise has taken place before, and I believe as a new style, we would want to continue that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to 9B, purchase of a new fire rescue tanker truck, and I'll pass this over to you, Troy.
Thank you. So hopefully for the final time, this will be brought forth to council. This has been certainly a long process, but worthwhile. The original RFP went out. We only received one response back. As a bit of background, it was more than anticipated and more than estimated. So we decided, at the direction of council, to investigate other options, including new procurement. We did that. Once it was a bit of a process because, of course, the original prices, of course, we can provide that at a lower cost. But once we really got into the line-by-line specifications and brought everything back, the final result was it was actually more expensive if we were to do everything kind of apple to apple. So the recommendation is to proceed forward with the original RFP from Metal Fab Manufacturing in Central New Brunswick. With that said, through this process and talks with that, they have provided or offered a $30,000, I don't want to say discount, but an adjustment to their original tender. And we've also made some recommendations of removing some equipment that will lower the cost and bring it within the approved borrowing and budgeted amount.
Thank you, Troy. So I'll read out the motion and open the floor. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the purchase of one fire department tanker truck in accordance with RFP 2026-01 from Metal Fab 2025 Limited with a total cost, including applicable taxes, not to exceed $800,000. Do I have a motion for that? Thank you, Councillor London, second by Councillor Bailman. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence and then Councillor Murphy.
I just have a quick question. It's my understanding that the equipment that was removed, the deck gun and supply hose,
Yes,
can be added at a later date?
Yes.
If we want?
yeah, we are including the piping,
Okay.
and the pumps so that a deck gun can be added, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy?
Same question.
Oh, okay, great minds. Okay, that's great. Any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 10, bylaws. There being none, we'll move on to item 11, new business recommendations. 11A, Centrum Rehabilitation. I'll pass that over to you, Troy.
Thank you, I believe, our CFO, James, has been, sorry.
That's 11A on our Kingdom Road was 11A.
Oh. Is this different than what's on here? Oh,
Yes, 11A is discharge agreement.
Oh, I've got it as 11B on here. Okay, that's good.
Sorry.
So we'll go on to 11A, discharge of agreement, 461 Kingdom Road.
So this is a property that, back when it was the former village of Westfield, and the facility was constructed there was an agreement made between the former village of Westfield and the property owners at the time that it basically had some conditions on construction of the road if the road was ever turned over. That agreement only applies, and it was a registered agreement on the title of the land, so because of that, and because of the fact that it is only enforceable to the original owner and the actual agreement can't be carried over, council essentially needs to agree to the discharge of that agreement, which will remove it from the title, and basically clear the path for the new owners. The analogy that our lawyer provided to us is it's somewhat the equivalent of if you have a mortgage and you've paid off your mortgage and the bank just decides to say, nah, we're gonna leave that on the title and make it look like you still owe money when you don't. Obviously that's not the case in this, and this is very similar. By leaving this on there, it makes it appear that there's an agreement that is actually no longer in effect and not enforceable.
Thank you. I'll read out the motion, then open the floor. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the release and discharge of the registered agreement number 261114 between the Westfield Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses and the Village of Westfield dated December 15th, 1988, and further, that the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the release and discharge of the registered agreement 267812 between the Westfield Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses and the Village of Westfield dated September 12th, 1989. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Toole, and a second, Councillor Bellman, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried, thank you. All right, then we'll go to Centrum Rehabilitation, and I'll pass that again over to you, Troy.
Thank you, and I'm actually gonna pass this one over to our CFO, James Barrington, who's been looking after this project for us.
Thank you, and I'll ask our building inspector and development officer to fill in any gaps that I have with this. So back in 2022, a condition assessment was conducted of this building, the community centrum, just to get an idea of the condition that the building was in and if any work needed to be done. One of the recommendations at that time was that the metal siding and cladding on the building was at the end of its life and it needed replacing. Council had allocated money in previous budgets towards this and has been sitting in reserves. And then in late 2025, as part of the 2026 capital budget, additional funding was allocated to get the project on the list for 2026. Also, some of the provincial capital renewal funding that we will receive this year was allocated towards this project. So what we're bringing forward to council tonight is approval to proceed with an architect to do some design work We have engaged with the architectural firm already to do some preliminary investigations, look at the building, what do they see. There are a number of issues with that they've identified, and some new ones as well, looking at the slope and the grading of the land around the building that we may have to deal with. But all the answers to all of those questions will come out of the work that they do if council approves this. The architectural firm Boyd Elgie is currently engaged on the public works garage that's been under construction, and their work is of extremely high quality, and they're very easy to work with.
Thanks, James. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize administration to award the professional services contract for the centrum envelope replacement to Boyd Algie Architect Inc. Limited. Do I have a motion? Councillor Wheel, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Next up is 11C, affirmation of cash in lieu. And again, over to you, Troy.
Thank you. And actually, I'm gonna have our building inspector and development officer speak to this item.
Thank you. Affirmation of cash in lieu. So cash in lieu is part of land for public purposes. And this process happens when you're subdividing land. So in our subdivision bylaw, there's a spot in there that talks about when you divide land, whether it's 2 lots or 10 lots, there's land for public purpose. And you can either give land or you can give cash in lieu. Historically, the town has calculated the LPP cash in lieu as assessed value of land. So you would go on, you would look at its assessed value, and that's how we would calculate. And what we're looking at doing is making it market value. So market value would be, you would go on, you would look at land that was similar, that has recently sold, similar in size, similar in location. We would go, that is its market value today. In doing some research, I looked at City of St. John, town of Quizfansis, and the town of Oromocto, just to try to get an idea of what other municipalities were doing, as well as relooking at Community Planning Act and the town's bylaw. So really, this is just kind of to confirm what the process should be here. We already have it in our bylaw that way, but it's just to say that we are actually going to use market value now and not assessed value.
Thank you, Danessa. So I'll read out the motion and open the floor. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive the land for public purposes calculation report for information and confirm that cash in lieu of land for public purposes shall be calculated as 8% of the market value of the land proposed for subdivision at the time of submission for approval of the subdivision plan, exclusive of streets intended to be publicly owned, in accordance with the Community Planning Act and the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield Subdivision Bylaw number PD-010. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Toole, thanks. Do I have a second? Councillor Bailman, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the motion as presented? Councillor Bailman.
Would that discourage people from dividing their land up? We went to the market value, the assessed land. Would that deter people from doing, to break up the land, say, when we tax on a certain amount of land instead of assessed value? Would that hinder development? Or would it?
I'll pass that over to Danessa to answer.
Really, it's about us getting our proper percentage of what it is. And through this process, we're going to make those developers aware that that's how it's going to be done now, so that when they're transferring land, they're able to include that up front. In some of the processes that or LPPs that we had done recently, we were kind of trying to navigate that because people thought it was one thing and then we had changed it. It wasn't the intent to change it, it was really just to do as the bylaw said. So now that we're affirming this, it's going to be public knowledge, landowners will know. That will be part of the process and how they set their price. 8% isn't necessarily going to deter a sale, but it will make sure that that's taken into account when those transactions and agreements are taking place.
So you subdivide a lot off a property, so you're starting to establish a precedent that your property is worth this lot already, then make your property more value than I wouldn't want to start separating property, because then the rest of the property develop, you try and develop it be assessed at a value also then. So it puts you in a dilemma of people trying to take a piece off your land to sell it as a lot and try to sell our lot, that's just discouraging. That's how that's all my opinion, that's all.
I think the other side of it that we need to consider is what this money is used for.
Right.
And the money from land for public purposes is what we use to create recreational facilities. So if we were to allow people to subdivide and build a 100-home subdivision, that volume, and even if it happens slowly, it's just one or two subdivisions at a time, that volume of homes requires recreational facilities that we need to fund. And really what this is doing is just simply bringing us back in line of where we should be in getting those funds to be able to do that work.
Deputy Mayor Toole?
Is there a line, because I know it is land for public purposes, but we're taking cash in lieu, is there a line we go to where we take the land piece versus like in a subdivision where say it's big enough for you to have, like I was recently at a community in Quebec and there's little parks in each little subdivision, so do we have any type of policy or level where we would take cash in lieu or, and then where we would take the land instead, like is there?
So currently it's written in the subdivision bylaw that we prefer cash to land.
Okay, so we don't have a law.
That's something that will potentially come to you as an amendment.
Excellent.
Currently now I do review with Rick whether or not we would want land. We have some land that we have taken previously that we're not going to be able to develop it. It doesn't connect to anything, it's not really in a location that's helpful. So it's really assessed for each property and whether or not it would be better to get the cash to develop something within our network, or whether or not it could actually have future connection. You're welcome.
Councillor Wheel?
Feels like everybody's answered a little bit of this, but what is the potential outcome or probable outcome of this change? Or wishful outcome?
Right. Maybe I'll pass that to the CEO.
Essentially, the only real outcome is that what is already in place is, as I say, we're just affirming what should be done already. It kind of got out of sync with the bylaw change, but the actual practice didn't change. So in essence, what you guys are affirming this evening has already been approved by council. It was just that when it was approved, it didn't necessarily follow through to the actual process. So by affirming it, it's kind of putting the notice of that we are now going to enforce this or follow this particular bylaw and receive the money that really the residents are entitled to be able to do the programming that is needed.
When you say outcome, I just want to be clear on your question.
Sure, in making this change, what's the objective? The hopeful objective?
So the objective was, so the Community Planning Act and other municipalities all were doing it a certain way. We had it written in the bylaw that way, but we weren't actually in the background doing that procedure. The outcome will actually be that we have more money in that LPP fund for the town to develop recreational areas, so.
We like that.
Councillor Bellman?
I think if we kept it the same, I think it's sort of status quo that people would build houses and would have more tax dollars to put in there. I think you put a house on a property, it's easier to say, I'm not gonna put a house on it anymore, I'm not gonna subdivide it, I'm not gonna do anything. I'd rather see people sell their land at whatever they can get our price on, get proper tax dollars for it, and and that money that the tax dollar we get from the house is outweighs what we're trying to do with a little bit of money we're trying to get off the people again when they sell their land, that's all.
I think the distinction here is, it actually already is written in the bylaw.
Yeah.
Just the practice wasn't following the bylaw, so we're affirming that the practice should follow the bylaw that council has already passed. And Councilor Burby.
I just have one more question, thank you, Your Worship, regarding the market value and how is that set? Is that set from the sale agreement?
Yeah, so when you go on assessment MB, and anybody could go on that map, it's a public map, and you can click on the property that has sold recently, it'll show up in green, and you can see how big the property is and what it's sold for. So we're trying to do a direct comparison in terms of a rural land lot versus land on Colonel Nace. So the land on Colonel Nace is selling for $40,000, which we would get a higher amount of LPP versus a very rural lot. So it's the closest vicinity for something that has sold recently, and then we do the calculation in terms of area. It's a direct calculation on, this is the new lot and its area, and this was what something recently sold as and its areas.
So just a follow-up question, is there could there be a discrepancy between an actual sale agreement, for example, say that I was interested in a piece of land that I'm gonna buy for $50,000. So, and I've agreed with the seller that that's $50,000. Could there be a discrepancy in that $50,000 and the market value?
Yeah, and if you think, or a landowner thinks that there is a discrepancy, they can have an assessor provide an amount. And we could use that the assessor's amount of the value of the land for the calculation, but they would have to go and do that on their own.
So it doesn't necessarily go off of, I'm gonna pay 8% of $50,000, it goes back to that market value and what that is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Kind of, like, it would be like when you go and get your house assessed.
Yeah.
That's different than what you're assessed for property tax. Those numbers are different, right? So what we're saying is that if you disagree with the number that we've come up with for market value, you can have an assessor come and do an assessment of the land.
So it's confusing.
Councillor London.
I'm just curious, so this was already set in place years ago?
Correct.
How did this get pushed under?
It wasn't pushed under. So I only started in September, and my planning director, Jamie Bird from Stantec, when I did this process for the first time, we followed the provincial standard, right? And followed our bylaw, and then it came to light that it had been done differently prior to me arriving here.
Alright.
Yeah.
What I meant was how did it get this?
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? Not seeing any. All right, then I will call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Danessa, for answering all those questions. Now we'll move on to item 11B, and I believe that Councillor McIntosh Lawrence has a conflict, so we'll ask her to leave the room while we discuss the items. 11D is NB Marathon Traffic Update, and I'll pass this over to the CAO.
Thank you. Our community development recreation director, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is this one is fairly simple. It's just simply looking for council's permission for the NB Marathon organizers to use a portion of our road network as laid out in the administrative report for your consideration.
Thank you very much. The motion is that the Council of Grand Bay-Westfield approves the temporary use of the proposed race route for the inaugural Nouveau Brunswick Marathon on August 2nd from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., subject to all required safety, traffic control, and event management measures being in place. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor London, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the motion? Yes, Deputy Mayor Joel?
No, and kudos to the whole group for doing this. It's kind of, the whole point of this was to replace, I guess, the void left when Marathon by the Sea left this area. 'Cause you don't, it's a great area because it's not as hot here as it is in other spots to have so you can actually have a summer marathon. So I know Alex Coffin and Lily Coffin really kind of put their heads together and asked if Grand Bay-Westfield would support, and I know the town staff and a lot of our residents are on the committee to get it going. So it's great so far. I think there's like 130, 140 people that are registered, so it's a good crowd for the weekend.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? That motion is carried, and just if anyone's watching, they want to take part, the race events will take place on Sunday, August the 2nd, beginning with the marathon at 8 a.m., followed by the 25K race at 9, and the 13 and 5 kilometer races at 10. And there'll be lots of post-race stuff going on at the Bird Valley Community Center, so hopefully everybody will partake of that great event. Now with that, we'll move on to 11E, GNB surplus property 57 Pamdenek Road, PID 00226589. I'll pass this over to you, Troy.
Thank you. So this, from time to time, the province has land that they no longer have value for their uses. Before it goes to the public, it goes to the municipality for the option to purchase. In this case, this is a building lot that previously had a structure on it. They are offering it to the municipality at a cost of $39,500. As we looked at the lot, it's not near any of our current existing facilities that we could make, and it doesn't really provide any value that we see aside from being a great building lot for someone to buy, which makes the most sense. If we're to allow them to kind of pass through us and go on to that option, and hopefully we do see somebody purchase the lot, build a home, and then that will, that's better, basically better for our finances is to have the assessment income from a full home there than anything we would be able to do with that.
Right. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield instruct the acting CAO to advise the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure that the town declines the offer to purchase the surplus land located at 57 Pamdenak Road. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor London, seconded by Councillor Bellman. Any questions or comments on that motion? Yes,
Do we have
Councillor?
any liens on this property, town, for just tearing down the building and the sewer disconnection? Do we have a lien?
So that would have all been taken care of from the province, so the way it works now is that we didn't tear the building down. But anything that was, the province collects the taxes, so
Okay.
essentially what it appears to have happened is the home became abandoned. It eventually got to a point that it had to be tore down, and at some point it was obviously turned over or taken over by the province. But any taxes would have already been forwarded.
There's no contamination on the property also, or?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary-minded? That motion is carried, thank you very much. 11F, letter, Honorable Aaron Kennedy regarding property tax reform. This was pulled out of consent by the request of Councillor Wheel, so I will pass that over to you, Councillor.
Thank you. Apologies, I didn't formally request that vote. I can appreciate the work and advocacy that you're doing with this, Mayor Merrifield. I had two questions. With the funding increase of $234,000, what are the funding objectives? What do these funds offset?
Thank you, Councillor. Pass that over to you, Troy.
So this is, what they're referring to here is the capital renewal funding, so this is a new stream of funding that is directly related to the, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, it's existing capital. So this isn't for purchasing new capital or new infrastructure of any type. It is basically, it's funding provided to maintain existing infrastructure, or capital items. It's 228, this year, go to 280 in the following year, and then 340,000, and then 390,000, is what we believe to be the max as far as the term of this particular stream. This essentially replaces all other forms of financing that the province had previously provided, which was about 600,000 in 2020. That went, it's 220 in 2026, and it will be zero by 2029. So if we take a look at what $600,000 did back in 2020, to be the equivalent of what that would do today, 228 certainly doesn't come close to that.
Does that answer your question?
That did, it leads well to, what should council do to continue advocating?
So we certainly could reply to this letter, if it's council's desire. There were some items in the original letter that were not necessarily addressed in the response. So we could ask for that clarification on, basically more pointed, specifically say, very much appreciate your response. Here's all the questions you didn't answer. Could we receive an answer on those? That would be the most likely option at this point.
Right, so if I can add, there are certain things that weren't addressed in this first phase of property tax reform that would actually be much more meaningful to New Brunswickers, such as the review of any of the property tax exemptions that exist out there that, you know, maybe they were relevant in 1972, but they may not be relevant anymore in 2026. Some transparency on what those exemptions are and what they actually cost New Brunswickers, because if like an industry as an example isn't paying, then the rest of us are. So that would be one thing. There was they didn't untether the commercial and residential rates, which sort of handcuffs municipalities. As an example, if we wanted to give our residents a tax break and you have heavy industry in the same, commercial in the same municipality, then that heavy industry or that commercial enterprise also gets that tax break. Or maybe you want to give your mom and pop shop a tax break, but you can't do that because there's no flexibility. So there are a number of things that were advocated for through property tax reform that weren't addressed through this part. So there's a number of different things that we could advocate in a subsequent letter. Are you putting a motion on the table, Councillor, with respect to this item?
I don't have a motion.
Thank you. So just for information?
For information.
Thank you.
It doesn't sound like you're done yet.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on the, okay, perfect. So with that, I think that was a receive and file. Okay, and I have a motion to receive and file. Councillor Bellman, thank you. I have a second. Councillor Burpee, thank you very much. All in favor? Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity for the great discussion. Item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the July 13th, 2026 bills for payment as presented in the amount of $531,681.79. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Burpee, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
I don't have any questions, but just a comment. I'm just wondering, for future bills for payment, if there's debentures, could we know what they are for? There's like 5 here. I'm just wondering if just beside the debenture, you could just write in what it's for.
Yes.
We could try to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you. Move on to item 13, consent agenda. Let's bring that up on here so I don't miss anything. So the motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agendas for July 13th, 2026, 13A, Fire Rescue Department Monthly Report, May 2026, B, Building Report, June 2026, C, Animal Control Report, June 2026, D, Communications Quarterly Report, June 30th, 2026, Financial Statements, April 2026, Financial Statements, May 2026, G, MAD Canada Certificate of Support, H, Third Shift 2026 Sponsorship Request, I, Letter AIS Resources Limited Mineral Claim. Do I have a mover for the consent agenda? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you, and do I have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole, thanks. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried, thank you very much. And then we'll move on to item 14, council reports, and we'll start with Councillor Murphy today.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay. So, June 23rd, I attended the Community Vitality meeting, and we were just doing final prep for the Canada Day event. The June 25th, I attended the FRSC orientation. It was an all-day meeting. It was very productive. This is around the FRSC services and regional collaborations, how to grow and improve. July 28th, the Four Corners raised the roof. There was a tremendous, excellent turnout. Some people showed up, there wasn't jobs, they went home. So thank you to everybody, it was really a fun day. Also thank you to Martin's Cranes for their generous help with the crane. July 30th, I volunteered again with the Westfield District Rec Association. Served hot dogs at Brundage Point for the Canada Day kickoff. We planned for 200 hot dogs, we served 600. And Debbie ran and got more, and Foodland actually opened up the store so that we'd have enough for Canada Day. So thank you to Foodland for accommodating us. Fireworks, totally awesome. July 1st, Canada Day, excellent turnout. I helped with the bouncy castle, continuous long lineup of little ones, and they were all good, there were no meltdowns. So also just wanted to, for anybody watching, the community benches are all around and they look really good. So if you take a minute just to drive around and see what the community has done for their painting skills. And also submitted my name to sit on the FRSC committee for solid waste, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wheel.
I'm still waiting. June 23rd, I went to the UMNB Town Council event. That same day, I was also at City Hall for the St. John Development Board, where I went through an onboarding process to be on the Heritage Board for St. John. On the 24th, I attended the Community Foundation's 50th anniversary gala event. It was very well attended. It was at the St. John Haven Convention. It was really nice to see how this foundation has brought together so many advocates and has made so many success stories from volunteers. And went to the Implement and Integrate Your Climate Adaptation Plan seminar. That was an online seminar through FCM. And those were the majority of my activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll go this end, we'll start with Councillor London.
Just a couple of things. June 28th, I was happy to be a judge for New Brunswick's Got Talent. I've been going to the shows Sunday night. It's really entertaining. It's nice to see how great of a turnout it is. Thank you for getting me on there. I really enjoyed it. And Canada Day, I attended the celebrations. That was put on. That was great. everybody loved it. It was great to interact with the community and just get involved. It was nice.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bellman.
Well, I attended our pro-kids meeting on the end of last Sunday of June, and it was a good meeting. We had a new chair, new vice chair, and new secretary, so. And I attended the UNB meeting with Mrs. So, and that was a good meeting, and the other one was, I want to thank, and don't thank candidate event also, so. I want to thank Martin Crane Rental also for their free donation of the crane rental. So they put all the rafters up and charge a penny, I guess, so I'm pretty happy with those. They did that thing, so thank you, Martin Crane.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
Thank you. June 23rd, I also attended the Community Vitality Committee meeting where we put the finishing touches on Canada Day event. June 25th, I attended the River Valley Community Center monthly meeting. June 30th, attended the fireworks. I think they were better than last year. July 1st, the Canada Day celebrations. Again, we had to take it inside, but I think every year it gets better and better. And I've also been judging on New Brunswick Got Talent every Sunday night, which is it's a nerve-wracking, stressful job. There's a lot of talent. Last night was really hard. And I've also been attended numerous meetings for the New Brunswick Marathon that will be taking place here New Brunswick.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Toole.
So for me, it was the Community Vitality Committee on June 23rd, again, to try to get Canada Day wrapped up, which they did a fantastic job with staff and students. It was amazing. And fireworks went to, and the Canada Day celebrations. And I haven't judged, and I'm glad because I didn't realize you guys had to talk. You guys do, they do, it's like, if you haven't gone, you need to go because it's quite something. But the talent was incredible. Like I went last night, I couldn't believe I had to park way over by the old WorkSafe building. It was a huge crowd. Like I heard it from my house, but I hadn't actually attended. It was really quite like what you were saying, Councilor.
Keeps getting harder and harder
Yeah.
every week.
It was amazing. Everybody should really take a look. It was incredible. But and then the other thing, just to mention, I've been getting a lot more questions now than compared to last council term. I don't know if people are more engaged or they're looking for stuff about things going on in town. I get them on Facebook, I get them in person, but just to remind everybody, we have such a great events page on our website. I'm really trying to get people to go there and also to send our communications officer things they want on there too, because it's a really good one-stop shop. Because I don't know if people are all of a sudden getting more engaged, but I'm getting a lot more questions now than I used to, and I just tell people to go there because it's
Thank you for that great reminder, Deputy Mayor. And so I've been busy. Not as busy as you guys, I don't think, but I attended the Chamber of Commerce event here in the building that was put on by Connection Works or hosted by Connection Works, and just a reminder that we now have that great incubator space for people that need an office, they need a boardroom, and all of that kind of stuff. Please take advantage of it, learn about the different membership options that Connection Works has. It's a really great resource. Again, I was in Morocco for 10 days for the UCLG World Congress. I can't say enough about the Canada Day events, the fireworks, and the actual Canada Day event. So a huge thank you to the Community Vitality Committee, all our incredible staff, for pulling off like yet another world-class event. We obviously get way more than just people from the town there. We get people from all over because they know this is the place to come on Canada Day. I attended the St. John Newcomer Center Breaking Barrier Awards last week, and that's great. So they celebrate either people or organizations that help, just like the awards say, break barriers for newcomers in our area. So that was really always such a great event. I attended the Fundy Regional Service Commission, Regional Transportation Committee meeting last week as well. We're moving forward on the public transportation study. Hopefully that will be ready to be presented to the board in September. And that's everything for me. So with that, we'll move on to item 15, which is business arising from Committee of the Whole. And there being none, we'll move on to item 16, which is adjournment. And the motion will be that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:29 PM. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wheel, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor London, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you to our audience members here today. We're thrilled to have you here.